All right, good afternoon, beautiful people. This is your host, Matthew, Day and Night Podcast, episode 44. We got another good one for you. Just hang tight. Please comment if you can. As usual, like, subscribe, and comment. So I'm gonna kick it over to Mark so we get this thing started.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Sunday fun day. I hope everybody having a great Sunday. I know it's beautiful down here in San Antonio, like always. So again, appreciate anybody that is tuning in on a Sunday and taking the time to listen to our show or watch our show, either or at this point. But just like always, thanks. Always like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment. I'm looking forward to today's topic. I think it's a good one. So again, we need feedback. Men and women, let's hear what y'all got to say. I get a lot of my, people that I know send me texts via Facebook about they like the show. But again, I appreciate you guys, but join in. Even if you want to come in as anonymous or something, you worried about putting your name out there, I get it. But just give us feedback, guys. I can't stress that enough because, again, it's important. It's an open dialogue for everyone, not just Matt and I. So on that note, just shoot a comment and just tell us how you feeling about the topic at hand. But I'm ready to get it started.
All right. So I don't know if y'all noticed, we got a different logo. I'm gonna do a trial base. So each week it's gonna be a different logo. So whichever one that y'all like, I'll ask you to just put in a comment. I like the logo, I not like it, or don't like it. So we'll really appreciate that if you could do that. All right, so today's topic, as most topics, is sort of relative, in my opinion. That's something that I think everybody at some point has dealt with or is going to deal with. So it kind of coincides with the topics that we had in the past. Like last week was triggers, I believe. So basically the topic is how coexisting, how do you co-parent, boys? How do you co-parent with the person you have the what is it? What is the topic again?
Is co-parenting with the significant, well, obviously the person you was with and your feelings towards them, like as if you had any, lost feelings or feelings that you can't get over. How do you co-parent with that parent? Being that it was a situation with your significant other, your ex. Now, okay. I didn't say that per se, but I'm just giving you a way of putting it. And, I don't remember exactly word for word, but that's pretty much what it was saying. If you read it, that's what you get out of that.
All right, so my brain is working again now. So co-parent, how do you co-parent with the person you're healing from?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, like I was saying, everybody has that some form of fashion or dealt with it some kind of way as far as healing from something, whether it's from childhood, a past relationship, something that's outside with friends, relatives, whatever the case is. I don't care who is out there, everybody is healing from something. So now the catch to that is, how do you heal? Well, if you're healing, how do you co-parent? If the person you need healing from is the parent or the co-parent, your significant other or your ex-wife or whatever the case is. So it's to me, it's an interesting dynamic, just for the simple fact that, like we talked about last week, that everybody has something they have to, like I said, heal from. There's something that triggers us to the point to where we might go back to what we was dealing with before. So in a relationship, it may not be as bad. Like if you dating somebody, you was in a relationship with them for about 2-3 years, and then you break up, and whatever the case is, if that person done something to you emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, verbally, whatever, financially, whatever they did to you, that you broke up with the person and you had to heal from them. most people, when they heal, they take a sabbatical, they go through the whole process of getting over whatever trauma that they went through. And when they feel as though that they're healed, they move on to another relationship or whatever the case may be. Now, that's just what somebody involved with. Now, the twist to it, so how do you co-parent if the person you're healing from is that parent? So I just thought it was a good topic to talk about because I was actually looking at Deion Sanders in an interview, and just listening to him talk, he was talking about how he healed and the stuff that he went through with his ex, and him just healing within himself. It allowed him to become a better father and a better partner for who he's with right now, which is Babyface's ex-wife, which is, I can't remember her name. But anyway, so
Trace.
The question is, how do you co-parent with that? So I'm going to use myself for an example. Now, for my situation, I think it was more so my ex-spouse that feel as though she had to heal from me because of the stuff that I did when we was in a relationship, when we was married. So for her, I'm pretty sure it was challenging to, whenever I come around to get the children or whenever we had to deal with the children, I'm sure it was a challenge for her because she had to heal from me. So how do you heal from that person if you constantly seeing them and the stuff is still fresh in your head, it's still fresh in your mind, your system, everything. So how do you co-parent with that person and you still have issues with that person? So for me, sometimes the children are ones that catch the strafe, so to speak. Those are the ones who's going to actually feel the pain more so than the person is healing. Because I'm say, for example, I think everybody in a relationship has it. If they have more than one child, there's one child that kind of favors or gravitate to, whether it's the father or the mother, to whereas that child is like, okay, they're just like their dad or just like their mom. So if you're healing from that person, and then that child kind of reminds you of the person that you're healing from, whether it's the husband, ex-husband, or ex-wife, indirectly that child can get the backlash of how that person is feeling because the only thing they see is you in that child. And it's not intentional. I just think subconsciously they remind you of that other person, and so they get like the brunt of it. So that's how I see that's being a negative way as far as how it affects the children. So I'm gonna kick it to you, Mark, and get your spin on it.
Well, I mean, yeah, this one, as you always say, I got a lot to say. So this one, I'm gonna have a lot to say, but I'm gonna try to break it down because I'm gonna get deep with it, and it's gonna go different ways. So I want to say this first and foremost before I even go forward. By no means, whatever I say, because I'm gonna use myself as an example at some point in this topic or this show about what I had to experience. So I'm not taking no cheap shots. I'm not trying to degrade the parents of my kids, the moms of the kids. I'm not trying to make me out to be the innocent one or play victim. I'm primarily speaking on what I lived and done, been through it, been there, done that, basically what I'm trying to say. So with me, I mean, it's going to sound easy when I say this, like easy saying than do. You know how that saying is, easy to say so, but it's harder to do it. So to fix that, to co-parent, to me, when you're healing, is just try your best to put your egos aside and realize, like you said a second ago, the kids are the ones that's going to get the bulk of the backlash of the animosity between you and your significant other. Now, I'm not saying everybody breaks up and part ways and it's as animosity or they have beef with each other. Some literally co-parent and get along with each other. So let me say that first and foremost. I'm not trying to say all relationships or co-parent is just a disaster, but I'm speaking on the ones that don't and the ones that are. Because there's a lot of parents that coexist and have a great relationship and raise their kids without any issues. So I know that's possible, and I know it happens. But I think the easy fix is, again, put your differences aside, understand that it's a bigger means, which is your kids, because they're going to catch the bulk of it. It is not fair to them that you're taking it out, or they have to experience it because you have whatever, again, animosity you have towards your ex. So that's the best way to handle it. Again, like I said, it's going to be easier to say than done. Just say, okay, we're not together, but we're going to do this right for the kids' sake. I think we all have our intentions are to look out for the best interests of our kids, but I think we get caught up in our egos, depending on the reason you two did separate or got divorced. I think plays a big part. And like you said, it's a process for me. Everything takes time, whether the person was mean to you, cheated on you, or just wasn't in the relationship and y'all had to go separate ways. It's going to take a while for you to heal from that. And to me, it's always easier to keep your kids out of it. But when you have to co-parent and raise your kids a certain way, like you said, you're going to be dealing with each other a lot. Even if it's once a month, depending on your visitation or how y'all handle seeing each, seeing the kids when y'all split up and, y'all back and forth with them. I think you have to understand that. Come get your kids and just go. We don't have to talk. We don't have to act like we friends. Just come get them, spend time with them, bring them back. That would be the easy fix. Sometimes it don't work like that, especially if it's fresh. And whatever reason y'all broke up, again, you look at that person, your ex, and you look at it, you having that animosity towards them, and you know it ain't right, but you go off, you say something, your kids are right there, and it just one thing leads to another. I think it's going to be a process. I think, again, you have to sit down and really talk to each other and be like, look, we ain't together no more. We need to raise these kids and do right by them because it's not fair to them that they have to deal with whatever differences we have. Now, the flip side of that, and I think this is a good thing, but we got to be careful. And I do know some people that they co-parent, but they still hang out. They still do things together as a family. And I understand what she told me. The reasoning is the kid went to see us together and still do things, together. I'm like, that's good. But if y'all not together, aren't you kind of leading on your kids or kid, making them feel like there is still a possibility that y'all can make it work? Because when the kids is involved, they don't want to see the parents break up because they don't know the whole story behind it. They just know y'all not together. So they might, in their mind, still want y'all to be together. And if they see y'all getting along and happy and laughing, I think that confuses a kid where you're not being truthful with them and sit down and be like, look, this is the reason why your mom or your dad and I are not together. I know we do things together, but just have understanding that we have to do that to do right by you. But we are never going to be together again. Because I think that's when you got to be careful. Even though in a perfect world, that's a good thing you would think, is to coexist with each other and do things together. But the flip side of that to me is you're leading that kid on to think that it could be a possibility, or you're giving them hope, in other words. So I think it's good to do that, but just be careful that if you do it too much, you're giving the kid the wrong message. And again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but you just got to go in knowing that we got to explain to these kids and let them know why we are coexisting. So I think it could go either way. That's just how I want to start off. I'm gonna let you go, then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna give you my actual situations so y'all can get a better understanding of why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking with this situation, this topic.
Okay. So you made that sound real easy.
Yeah, I told you it's gonna sound easier, but
okay. So I'm more so looking at like healing. Like I was saying earlier, most people need healing within themselves. That's before they even get in a relationship. It's past things that they're dealing with that they haven't let go and gotten over. So if you can't, not you, but a person can't even self-heal themselves, that's a challenge within itself because it takes work. Like you said, it's a process, but the person have to put in the work. So when it involves the other parent, the co-parent, that's like another level because, like I said, normally when a person self-heals and they heal, they normally shut themselves off, not to the outside world and just become a hermit, but shut themselves off to the point to where they're not letting anything in that's going to hinder their progress of healing. So the best way I can think of is like a wound. First you cover it up, to make sure it don't get infected. So that's what I was talking about as far as closing off yourself from everybody. You cover that up to allow for the actual the skin or whatever, the wound to start healing. And when it gets to a certain point, you take the Band-Aid off so oxygen can get to it and it starts to heal. So that's what I'm looking at as far as if you in a relationship with that person and you need that space away from them. So as easy as it may sound, is okay, well, let's have boundaries. You just drop them off at this time or you do that.
Right.
There's still a process that you have to go through in order to heal. So for me, I think it depends on the age of the children. For me, when I left, I think Matthew was the youngest at 10, and the others were teenagers. So they still had that time with me, but the wound was deeper for her because we had already 16 years in. So with the trauma stuff that she went through with me and the stuff she had to heal from, that's not going to be healed in 5 years. That's going to take time. So every time you come by and see the person or they dropping the kids off, and then the children still, feeling a certain type of way. And I don't know, I just think it's harder than just, okay, well, just have some clear boundaries. You do this, you do that, because self-healing normally starts, like I said, you close off everything and you allow yourself to go through that grieving process and you work on your self-esteem, whatever the case is. So when dealing with that other parent, it's challenging. So just real quick, for my example, like when I left, not only was she still upset, but her parents was upset. So I remember when I flew down to Atlanta, Kiara was having she was a majorette. She was doing something for the football team. So I got there and we're walking down to the entrance and we got to the ticket booth. And I forget how much it was. And the grandmother said, rest in peace, because she transitioned. Well, why don't their dad pay for it? Right in front of the children and stuff. So it was just awkward. It was a bad feeling. Right. So in the beginning, it was challenging to co-parent because I'm pretty sure she had people in her ear where you need to do this and you need to do that. And then however she was feeling towards me made it that much more difficult to co-parent because she had other people in her ear telling what she should and should not do. Then she's battling with her feelings of what she should and should not do because she still had love for me. So she wanted to be hard and be a certain way, but then she couldn't. You see what I'm saying? So it's a really, really, really deep situation to be in. And I still believe based off of when, those couples break up is going to determine the level of the challenges it's going to bring as far as co-parenting. Because I think the longer you're in it, the more challenge it is. Now, if you've been married for, say, 2 years or whatever, and you get divorced and the child is still a baby, it might still be challenging, but it won't be as challenging as far as like 16 years or 17 years. That makes sense.
Yeah, well, get ready to buckle up. So this is the reason why I started off earlier, because that was more like an intro. Now I'm gonna break it down, and I'm glad you did say that. That's why I started off by saying what I'm gonna say is gonna sound easier than it's actually able to be done. A perfect example where we're two different situations, and I'm glad you highlighted that because I was married once. We was only married, and I'm laughing, but it's just now I can sit back. It was like a year, and then we got divorced. So that's facts right there. Say less. It's going to be totally different when you had history, a long history versus someone that's been 2-3 years. But you could have been with them longer and then got them pregnant or had a kid. So it could still be the same, maybe not the same as far as aftermath of being married 30 years, 50 years, whatever. So it will be a significant difference. But now I'm gonna share with y'all, and I'm gonna be very transparent. Again, let me say this: I'm not by no means trying to put myself as the better person or degrade the parents, the moms, and all that. I'm just trying to paint a picture, and I'm gonna be as honest as possible. So, situation with myself, and you know this, Matt, with my two daughters' mom. I'm not gonna say their name, but we never got married, but we was together for a good few months, 4 or 5 years, maybe 6. We had in the beginning a good relationship, but when we had our first daughter, it got a little different. Then by the second one, we was very toxic, too toxic individual. I know it's going to sound a little different because everybody case by case is different. So I'm just again sharing mine. So we was, when I say we couldn't get along, we was like arch enemies. We didn't care if we was fighting, going at each other, disrespecting each other. We had 2 little ones now. You made a good point about when they're younger, it may be different to when they're older. But the thing is with me, even though they may be younger, they still experiencing that. And they still get affected by it. Because it got to the point where we was almost trying to kill each other. Family got involved, our brother got involved, where he was going after the mom's brother because he was threatening me. It got so bad to where Jay had to come to me and tell me, and we did break up. I'm trying to make this as short as possible. We eventually had to detach and get away because we was very toxic. It was not healthy for us or the kids. We was fighting in front of them, cussing, disrespect each other, just very immature 2 parents. We was young. I was 21. So I'm not making an excuse, but age do play a part. I was just growing up, just moved to a different city, so I was still growing as a young man. But anyway, so when we separated, we still was going at each other. And now we got kids. When you coming to get them, you need to get them this time. So that was a challenge in itself because whatever I did was deemed not good enough. So I had to go far and beyond just to show that I cared for my kids. Now, this is where you're saying the healing part. So even though we weren't married, I did care for her. I'm not gonna sit there and act like I didn't care for her. We just had a very unique relationship, very toxic, but we did have love for each other. Just very aggressive and very immature, but we still care for each other. So this is what Jay told me. And I didn't want to do it, but he's like, little brother, you're gonna have to step away and take your time to be by yourself and be away from you, the kids and their mom, because what you and her are doing is only hurting the kids. Y'all ain't trying to better yourselves. Y'all not trying to grow from it. Y'all not trying to evolve. So he said the best thing to do is you need to walk away, get yourself right, get your life right, because right now the path you're heading is not good. Now, he just suggested, and this is what you need to do. He just gave me his opinion. I thought about it, and I actually had to do it. So I'm answering that question when you said, what do you do in the healing process? Like you said, you got to go through a sabbatical. It's going to be the hardest thing to do. That was the hardest thing I ever had to do because it gave the mom the opportunity to say, see, your dad don't care about y'all. He left y'all. He abandoned y'all. Now, again, I'm not putting her up, throwing her on the bus. She say she didn't say it, but you can tell how the kids react and how they treat you accordingly because they feel like you owe them something or just, you could tell that something was being told to them. What just part of it is them seeing it for their own 2 eyes because they were too young to understand, so they only want to go by what they was told. But that was the hardest thing I ever had to do. And I'm going to say it was probably a good year. I had to walk away. And I couldn't co-parent because we was that toxic. We was at each other's, I mean, I've been shot at by her, stabbed a couple of times. So it was very bad. I'm not trying to go into too much detail, but I'm just trying to paint a picture that was the only way. Literally, you have to walk away. And eventually I did come back and I did explain to them that I had to walk away. They didn't understand. To them, they felt like I was trying to abandon them. I didn't want the responsibility. I was all about myself. And I get that. And I had to take years to grow that relationship back with them. But it was something I had to do because it was no end in sight where it was getting better. Now, again, not everybody's situation is the same. Some people may not have to do that. But for me, personally, that was how I handled that healing process of getting over her and co-parenting. I had to literally walk away for a year and then come back. But I was better. I know I won't retaliate and be immature and go off. And I think it has plus and negatives, but it was something that the only thing at that time that was going to be feasible for me to do to get past that healing process. So I don't know what y'all think about that, but give me what your thoughts on that. That's just, like I said, that's just my situation.
Okay, so there's two things I want to cover as far as what parents can do to co-parent. Now, this may work for some people, it may not, but it's just some guidelines, something to think about as far as I wrote them down. So co-parenting post-relationship. When you co-parent with your ex-partner, you want to make sure boundaries is established. And I think you said that. That involves like responsibilities between the two, communication guidelines, a well-structured co-parenting that kind of minimizes the conflict and it keeps the children in a stable environment. So for me, the way I kind of raised them is totally different how she raised them. Like we're polar opposites as far as how we or what we believe in and how children should be raised. And this is where it can become a problem if you're healing from that person. You may not want to hear what that other parent has to say. Because to me, the best way to have a stable environment is, you have your way of doing things at your house, and I have my way of doing things at the house. But I believe when it comes down to certain things, the two parents should be on the same level. Okay, curfew. I know that's your house, but they should have a curfew because we're parents. As parents, we should enforce a curfew. So at my house, their curfew at 9, 10 o'clock. Okay, well, I normally do about 11. Okay, to keep a standard and to keep a structure as far as parenting. So they're not torn between, well, I'm at mommy's house and she let us go to bed at 11. Then they dread coming to see me because I'm like, no, you got to be in bed by 8 o'clock. So again, you see what I'm saying? It's like that tug of war. So that effective guidelines, okay, even though you got your rules over there, let's come together as parents and come up with a structure that's going to be cohesive for the establishment of our children having a structure when they grow up, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm shaking my head because, I keep saying you stole, but we've stated the same thing because that was, I was going to allude to that next, is both of y'all got to be on the same page. Now, again, to me, that's in a perfect world. Because to me, I look at it like this. If y'all was living together, you still should be raising your kids the same way. You know, when we go and ask dad, what did dad used to say? What did your mother have to say?
Yeah.
What did mom? No, what did Charles? Charles didn't say that. I know better than that. So to me, that's where it has to be. Like you said, even though we're not living together, you should be saying, I know your mom didn't tell you that because we won't think like that. Even though we're two different people, we ain't raising you like that or y'all like that. So you're not going to come over here and do it this way and say, this is how mom is. So that's 100% facts. Both parents need to sit down and say, look, this is the way it should be. But again, the perfect world, that's the way it should be. Because I had to personally go against the grain on, well, I was told, well, when they with you, you do it your way. When they with me, this is how I do it. So I was the product of the opposite of that, where I had to battle back and forth on how to raise them because the moms was totally different and their beliefs was totally different. So that made it 100% hard. So again, we should sit down and have boundaries, but I think that goes into, again, why y'all broke up. Again, it shouldn't be like that. But if you had animosity, I personally believe in the beginning, we had animosity, so you're going to be more rebellious against the other parent and tell the kids this is how I be or this is how I do over here. When you go to your dad's house, you do what you want because it's animosity. So I think that's a process that you're going to have to go through eventually and get through it. Again, is that right? Of course not. But I think unless you just able to turn it on and off and say in the beginning, this is our boundaries, this is the way it should be, it should. But one thing I use an analogy, my old boss told me this, and this is how I always look at parenting. When I was a manager, and he would tell me, when I leave this store, when I'm not here, I'm still here. And he looked at me. He's like, you don't understand what I'm trying to say? And I was like, yeah, I get what you're saying, Rufus. He's basically saying, I want this store ran the same way, even when I'm not here, because you're going to do it the same way. You're not going to be like, well, I'm here, I'm the manager now, so this is the way it's going to go. And I feel that same analogy with parenting. Even though I'm not in the house with you, this is the way it should be, vice versa. When they with you, it's just like if we were still together raising y'all. So, I mean, I agree with that 100%. That has to be something that's both of us got to agree on. Unfortunately, for me, it was never like that. It was always a constant battle. It was, I don't do things that way. You do it different. And it's unfortunate. And a lot of that is because they haven't healed right. And they have the animosity. Now, I'm going to speak on my son's mom. We were actually married. And we didn't have a bad breakup. I mean, though we did get divorced, but what hate you, I can't stand you, nothing like that. She had her way of raising Marcus, and I had my way, but we still had to get past the healing. And it took a while, but she came to me one day, I think he was like 4 or 5. She told me, I need to get away. I need to find myself. I need to get me right. I need to go and be alone. I didn't argue with her. I didn't say, no, hell no, you need to stay at home and be a mom. She said, I need you to take Marcus. I took him and kept him for maybe a year while she went and did what she had to do and come back. So I think it can be done. Again, some people may not agree and say that's the best option is to walk away. But if you honest with your ex and say this is what I need to do, if they be mature enough, they can be able to go, okay, like we did. She left, took off for a year, had to go get right or whatever it is. And I kept Marcus for a year. She came back. I was like, here, you can have him back. You had your year. Hopefully you got yourself right. So I believe it can be. That's a way to get over yourself. You put it out there when you said that's the only way to heal is just be alone, exclude yourself. It's going to hurt. And I know it's even harder for a woman than a mom to do it than a dad. So it has to be an understanding. I know I'm making it sound easy, but sometimes the only way you can is to just try. And if it works, it works. If it don't, you got to find another option.
All right, so there's 2 things I want to do. KJ has a question, and then I want to go on point 2 that I have as far as embracing self-care. So I'm going to read KJ's question. KJ says, what if the parents have different parenting styles? It would be difficult to set boundaries if you don't agree on how to raise the child. 100%, and I think that's what Mark was just talking about, how the 2 different parenting styles cause conflict. In a perfect world, like Mark just said, it sounds easy to say, but just in my mind, the easiest way of doing it is like you have to set your ego aside. And like both parents have to come to an agreement and look at it as, okay, what is the best way of raising our children? Not, well, this is my parenting style. And then it's you versus him. Well, this is my parenting style. Mine's is better. No, mine's is better. Like that has to go out the window, and it has to come down to what is the best style, if you want to say that, best style to raise our children, and put the egos aside and don't look at it as my style versus his style. Because then, in my opinion, it's never going to change. It's never going to get anywhere. And again, the child's going to suffer because while y'all going back and forth, challenging each other on whose style is better, the child is getting left out. So for me, the best way of doing so is, like I said, just finding out what's the best style that's conducive to your children, because y'all both should know your children, what they respond to, what they don't respond to, their likes, their dislikes, their weaknesses, their strengths, and you base it off of that. It may sound structured, that's my military mind coming in again, but seriously, like you have to do that. Because if the children are suffering from it, the logic mind has to take over. Like the ego have to go away. Okay, so Mark, I'll let you answer that. Then I'm going to read the point 2, step 2.
Okay, so read the question one more time. I'm sorry, I just sometimes got to hear it again.
So she said, what if the parents have different parenting styles? it would be difficult to set boundaries if you don't agree on how to see the child or how to raise the child.
Oh, well, yeah, we both agree on that. But here's the thing I want to kind of get into with that statement or question. Now, I think that does depend on how long y'all was together when y'all break up. But divorce, because the reason why I'm saying that, because if y'all was living together and y'all was raising, let's say your kid, for example, y'all got divorced, your kid's 13. I'm not saying it should be easy, but y'all already had a good amount of time with the way y'all raised them together anyway. So y'all already was in a household together. So y'all was already on a different level of raising them together. It ain't gonna be no different when y'all separate. It's just that y'all not in the same household. And in other words, like if you living with your wife and she's like, babe, I like to do this with my son. Like, babe, I don't agree with the way you discipline him. Need to be more hard. That's just something y'all need to work out regardless. I don't think it changes together or not. That's just two different parenting ways. And I mean, that was the best statement you just had. Put the egos aside, come to a conclusion, an understanding on, look, you play good cop, I play bad cop. That may sound silly and juvenile, but sometimes that kid need both, that balance. Because if you have both parents the same way, in a sense to me, that might make the kid rebel because they feel like they getting all of it the same way. Now, I'm not saying the other one got to be super nice, but the good and bad cop, to me, I think that works. Now, you could say, well, that's going to be divide and conquer because then he's going to go to the good parent and use that against you. But, I mean, the other parent could be stern as well, but just not over the top. Now, I may not answer that question or not, but all I'm basically saying in a nutshell is you got to keep doing what you've been doing as if you was together. Like I said, if you was 13, 14, 15 years into marriage, y'all already created the way y'all raise your kid anyway. So if y'all not together, it ain't going to change. I mean, I think, unless I said earlier, you have animosity. Now you're using that as ammunition to get back at that parent. Because if not, he was already doing it before. Like with me, my situation with the kids, when Marco and when their mom and I broke up, Keisha and Deanna was like 6 or 7. So they were still young, but they wasn't teenagers. You know what I mean? So the way we was raising them together already, it was already an issue. So even though we broke up, it was the same thing because she was already like that when I was with her. So we just had to come to an understanding on, look, this is how I do it, this is how you do it, but we need to understand, we got to make sure as a core to where they both get, this is both mom and dad telling us this is the way it is. Not when I'm with you, you do what I say. When you with your dad, do what he says. Because that's what it was, but we had to come to an understanding. And again, it took a while, it was a process. It was not easy, so I'm not sitting here making it sound easy. It took a minute. But we there now, they grown, of course, now. It was a process. So ain't no easy way, that's for sure.
So I want to kind of keep this in the context of the co-parenting with the person you're healing from. Because a lot of what we're talking about, it can kind of deal with that, but just add that on top of it. Mm-hmm. Because that's what the challenge is because you're healing from that person. So the best way I can look at it as, like I go back to the womb. Every time you see that person, it's like you reopening that wound. So every time it heals, it's like you taking the Band-Aid off and putting it back on. So it's going to take longer for that wound to heal because you're constantly removing the bandage. So that's why I'm looking at that question as, how do you co-parent with the person you're healing from? Because it's a process, like you were saying. So I'm going to go to step 2. And basically what I'm talking about is understanding the dynamics of that because you're healing from that person. So that's the first thing I said was co-parenting post-relationship. So the second part is embracing self-healing. And that's basically the person is embracing self-care. You know, they're taking care of themselves. You know, they're doing therapy, meditation, counseling, and they're doing everything they can to rebuild their emotional well-being. So that basically is going to help reestablish, you know, to become a better co-parent, because that person still has to heal in the process of co-parenting. So I'm going to use my situation for example. Now, certain things that I did in that relationship, And like I said, because it was 16 years, that's a long time. Every time you see that person, like I said, it's like that wound is being reopened again. So now that person has to battle even harder to really like listen to this person because that trust was already torn, you know? So now they got to retrust you. Okay, now I got to trust you if you're going to co-parent with me and take care of our children and raise them the right way because you violated my trust. So how does that look? How does that work? So that's why I'm trying to give like certain steps or certain things that can help that person that's healing, because that's the key thing out of all of this is the person is healing. So yeah, it's easy to say, well, we can have boundaries and stuff like that, but what are they doing in the process of that? So they have to continue their healing process.
Right.
Like self-care, taking care of themselves, taking care of their mental health, taking care of their emotional health, their spiritual health, their physical health. You know, because a lot of time that stuff drains all those things, and that's what depletes them. So they have to build that stuff back up along with being a co-parent.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so the step two, again, I guess I'm gonna go back to the same thing where, again, I'm trying to think. I don't think there's no easy way. I mean, to me, when I stepped away from the kids, because I was healed at the time, because while I heard their parents and I broke up, there was some things that, you know, at that time I couldn't accept. So, and it affected me in other relationships. So that's where I was, you know, I had to think about what Jay told me. And I went like the next day, I was like, okay, I ain't gonna see them no more. It took me a minute to get myself to do that, knowing that it's gonna look bad in their eyes. And then I had to trust that the mom is not gonna take that and run with it and make it look like I'm trying to abandon them. But I needed that alone time to heal. Like you said, I think honestly, when you think about it, it's gonna sound bad. I know it's different for women with the kids to stop and just you can't just walk away. But like I said, when my son's mom did it, I took him in and kept him with me. So it wasn't like she just left him out in the streets or something, or I don't want to deal with him. Like she told me I need to get away, I need to find myself, whatever. I said, okay, do you. I never went at her like, you bad mom, what kind of mom would do that? I had to understand, like you were saying earlier, you got to understand the other person. And I understood because I did it with the girls. So I was like, okay, take your time, get right, and come back. So again, easy said than done, but I actually lived through it. So in 16 years we was together, so it may be different because we weren't together that long. So maybe that's why it was easier for me to do that. But I still think it's something hard to do because you're not seeing your kids. But you had to stay away because you wasn't healing. Because like you just said, when they in your face all the time, or you got a kid that kind of looks like them, you're not going to heal, to be honest, if you're not doing any steps to heal. If all you're doing is coping with it every day, in a sense, like deal with it, mad, sad, then you're not never healing. You're just dealing with it and you're just letting it go. So you literally have to do something. Mine was a year off with the girls. Then his mom, my son's mom, was a year off with him. And it wasn't him, but she had to heal for herself so she could be a better parent in person, individually. So I think that'd be one way. I can't really think of no other ways, but again, I get it is a hard thing to do. I'm not sitting here saying anybody can make that decision because I was battling that, trust me, because I knew the repercussions that I get from it and how it would look to the kids and to the parent. But you know, luckily the mom didn't understand with the girls. She just was against it. She felt like I was trying to ignore my responsibilities. So for her, it was a battle all the way for that whole year. But with my son and I and her mom, we understood, here, do your thing, come back. But with the girls, yeah, that was even torture, but I had to do it because I had to heal. So yeah, I don't have all the answers, but that would be one solution in my eyes.
All right, so Diamond Girl says, I always say you have to know where you end and someone else begin. Give an example of how this is best accomplished. Hmm. I always say you have to know where you end and someone else's begin. I'll let you take that one. I gotta think about that.
Well, I mean, she tells me that all the time, so I get what she's saying. Like you can't be an extension of someone else. Now I was going to start with that after you got back talking. Is you got to know? To me, it's going to sound easy again, but you got to know the person you're dealing with. I'm going a little deep with this. In the beginning, you should already know how your significant other is in the parenting. So if you ever did, whatever reason you broke up, it shouldn't be that hard because you should already know who that person is and how they would be. So you healing from, but the parenting should still be a little bit, okay, we could do this. We don't have to deal with each other. I'm hurting from you, but when it comes to the kids, I can shut it down. That's the only way I can look at it. Again, it sounds easy, I know that. But this ain't no easy way to fix this. No easy way to heal. You can know where you end and where the other one begins, which is true. I agree with that. But my scenario on that is know who you're dealing with, in a sense. I know that sounds kind of insensitive, but sometimes you got to understand who you get involved with, and if you have that life with that person, it shouldn't be that hard to be able to coexist as parents because you know who this person is. You know they're gonna still do right, or we're gonna do right by the kids. Again, it's an ego thing. So that's another thing we keep repeating. It's gonna come back to you checking yourself, understanding the situation, and take care of the greater good, which is being for the kids and not your ego.
Okay, so I'm going to go over step 3 of understanding dynamics. And step 3 is effective co-parenting strategy. So basically, open and honest communication, transparency that has to be there, because it's a key to being harmonious, with each other, and just as parents as a unit. Y'all both have to want to have open and honest communication. Your ex-partner, you want to encourage discussions with children, the children's well-being, schedules, and any concerns that may arise. So probably one of the best ways of doing it is having it like a business structure to where emotions is not getting involved. So it's more or less, you have to sit down, but on the phone or whatever the case is. And like I was saying earlier, you come, okay, this is what I would like to do. This is what I would like to do. Okay, so how is this going to best fit our children? Is this going to push them to success? Is this going to help them become better people? Is this going to help them succeed in life? Yeah, I like what you said. I like what you said. Okay, we agree. This is how we're going to do it. And not necessarily having a schedule, but just having a structured format to where it takes the emotion out of it. And it's solely more or less just like a business deal or business partnership as parents. And so to me, that kind of takes away the emotion aspect if you look at it as a business, but you're just in business with the other person, that's your partner as parents, if that makes sense. Like if you have a business, you got a co-partner or business partner. So you bounce things off each other. Okay, this is where we at. This is what we need to do to improve. We're lacking in this area. Okay, well, we got to have a meeting on this day. I think if it's approached that way, then the emotion is taken out of it because the only focus is the children. So that's the primary goal is the children. And it's not, well, you did this to me 10 years ago. And you know what I'm saying? So you're not arguing based off of, okay, this is my style. No, this is my style. This is no. Okay, the children is the plan. Okay, I'm just going to throw names out there. Okay, this is what Kiara is good at. This is what Kiana is good at. This is what Matthew is good at. Okay, what can we do to help support them become better? Yeah, she's like this. Okay, we can do that. Just something like that. Just something that's going to keep the focus on them and not on each other. So that way, to me, it kind of alleviates the pain and it still allows you to heal at the same time. Yeah. Okay. So what is your feedback on that?
No, I mean, That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, it's not easy said and done, but that's a unique way of handling it. But again, that's would be have to be a process to me because you have to get to that point. I don't think it'd be the next week or 3 months after y'all get divorced or separated, whatever, that you'll be able to sit down and do that. I think once you get to that level, that would be ideal. But I think it's going to be trials and tribulations to get to that point. Um, Again, I've dated someone where she speaks of her kid's dad as like he's a god. I always used to sit and look at her like, how come y'all ain't together? You always speak highly of him. But she always said she respected him as a dad. He was a great dad to the kids, always been there. And he's in another city. So it's not like they was in the same city. But she always told me that when it came to that, they always sat down and discussed, well, look, so-and-so has this, you need to talk to them. It was never, well, you over there, you need to figure it out. He will always talk to her and be like, okay, well, let me know what I can do. I try to do my best. So I do believe that it is something that you can just be mature about it and understand that you two didn't work out. And they kind of, to me, the way she did it, to me, it did seem like a business transaction. They talk so professionally to each other. It seemed like they weren't even ever a couple. But yeah, they handle it like that. When so-and-so needs this, okay, when can you do it? All right, bye. Real short to the point and whatnot. So what you been up to? How you doing? It was just about the kids in a discussion. So I think that's a good approach. Again, that's going to be a process. I don't think you'll be able to do that in the first year that you break up with the person. Again, depending on the reason why y'all separated. I think that has a lot to do with it. Because if you have animosity, it's going to be time before you can be able to sit down and be mature, even do it in a business transaction way. But that is a good way to do it. Because I've seen it done. So I'm basically piggybacking off what you said, saying, yeah, that actually do work because I actually seen somebody do it or them do it together and they never had no problems with it. So that is a way of doing it. But can everybody do that? Yeah, everybody's different. So, but it'd be a good way to handle it though, instead of just being asses with each other, being stubborn or this is my way, so.
All right, so step 4 for understanding dynamics is coordinating schedules. Efficiently managing schedules, shared online calendars, co-parenting apps, coordinating visitation and extracurricular activities. So again, if you put it in the business format, then it should work fine. And that's one thing I will give my ex with credit. It wasn't like that in the beginning. Like as when she started to heal, she opened up a little bit more. So she would let me know, okay, Matt, this is what's going on. She would email me everything that was going on with school. She would contact me sometimes. Well, not sometimes. Towards the end, she would contact me more. Okay, this is what's going on with X child, or whatever the case is. Sometimes it was late, but she still kept that communication open. So I think the key is in the beginning, like both parties have to identify, okay, we both had certain feelings towards each other. We both are healing because it's not just one person, you got two. And I don't think I mentioned that in the beginning. So the co-parenting is both parties. The person you have to heal from is that other person. So if you got two people that's trying to heal, it's going to make it that much more challenging. So the key is in the beginning is on that self-care, and getting help and doing all the necessary steps to heal. Because if you don't, then it's going to prolong, and then that's where the issues come in, and the children are the ones that's going to be the sacrifice for it. Okay, so now I'm going to touch on step 5. And step 5 is basically what I was talking about the entire time. And that is always putting the children first, make them a priority. That's putting our personal feelings aside, putting the ego aside, whatever disagreements we may have for the sake of the emotional stability of the child. And that's why I wanted to show that video with Deion Sanders and Babyface. Now his was a little bit interesting, and I don't know if anyone's seen it, but when Prime, Deion Sanders had his show with Pilar, I think that's who it was. He had a reality show, and there was one episode where he sat down with Babyface, and they was basically being transparent with each other. And Babyface was saying, um, you know, I forget her name, whatever her name is. She's my best friend. She's my friend, and as long as she's in a good place and I know she's being taken care of and she's at peace, and I know my children will be taken care of, and they'll be in good hands. So basically, that took two healed people to be able to sit down and communicate. Now, I think it would have been better if it was Babyface and his ex-wife, but apparently they had a good relationship anyway. But just the simple fact that Deion was able to sit down with the children's father, eye to eye, face to face, man to man, and not be at each other, not try to ego trip or whatever. And it was all about taking care of the children and the best interest of the children. And so I like to read the comments and stuff, and a lot of more so women were saying, wow, then that's real men right there. That's what I'm talking about. I didn't see it as a man thing. I seen it as a maturity thing. I seen two people that was mature and that was healed, that they put their past hurts aside and they was looking at the best interest of the children. And that was the main focus of the meeting was, okay, what are we going to do to make sure the children is taken care of and they have a stable environment. So when they leave your house, it's no different when they leave your house and they come to my house. And that's always been my big thing. Did it always work out that way? No. I admit it took me a while to heal. And I didn't know I was damaged at the time. It was more anger and stuff like that for other reasons. But that's why I was saying, like, those people have to heal because the children are the ones that suffer from it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna read what KJ says. She says, sometimes because of spite, individuals cannot sit down and agree or just won't do the hurt and anger without thoughts for the children, the child or children. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that kind of goes back to what I was saying. Depends on how and why you two are not together. And again, if it was a bad breakup, I think we both said this, and we all might agree or disagree on this. I don't know. Is in the beginning, I don't think nobody, if it's a bad breakup, is going to transition into, okay, this is all about the kids and we're going to do this. I think again, it has to be you said it. It's the healing. This is the whole key to this. Is you have to heal from it. And some heals quicker than others. Some think they may be healed and haven't. Like you just said a second ago, you thought you was healed, but you really wasn't. So I think it has to be in time. Again, I keep reiterating this process, but I truly believe that's going to be the only way. It's going to be a battle, and that's what I was saying about my situation. And I can only speak on that because I had to live that side where it was a process for me to get to the point where their parents and I, our kids and I, parents, we can coexist now. Because it was for many years where we couldn't sit down, come to an agreement. It was, well, why are you doing this with her? Or why are you doing this with him? So it's going to be a process. You have to start trusting and understanding that, hey, this is for the better benefit of the kids. We can't keep going at each other because it's not helping us or them. We need to grow up. So I feel like it is going to be hard because some parents that you can't get across to them and be, hey, let's do this right. So that's a challenge. The only thing I can say on that, honestly, is just got to keep at it and then hope at some point that person heals to where they can see the bigger picture is we need to be civil with each other and be about the kids. Because I think it is possible. I just think it's just some people take longer than others and they have to go through that unfortunate process or those trials and tribulations, what goes through with that in the process of healing. So that's the only way I see it in my eyes. So,
All right. So, step 6, flexibility is key. Like just knowing that stuff is going to come up, and you can't look at the other parent and blame them and say you're doing it intentionally. Just like you were saying that you had to step away or whatever for your self-care and well-being. Like the other parent have to understand, like, okay, whatever that he's going through, he needs his space and time. And just knowing, okay, I got to be flexible, and we have to work together to get through this, regardless, because life, as everyone knows, is always going to throw you a curveball. So it's not this perfect script where you can just go day by day, knowing exactly how it's going to play out. So just being flexible, and that's something we always said in the military, is always be ready, be flexible, because every day is going to bring you something different. And you can't hold it personal to that person because it's just life, as they say. Then step 7 is maintaining emotional well-being, seeking support. To me, one of the number one keys is having a positive support network or support group. If you got negative nannies in the back saying this person is this and that, you shouldn't do this and do that, that's going to make the healing process even harder. It's going to make the co-parenting even more challenging, because like I said earlier, now you're fighting how you feel with how your network feels. And then you got to deal with the other person. So that's a lot. So having the right network of people is going to help allow the individual, the co-parent, effectively. Just having positive people around. And then the last one is just self-care practices. Incorporate self-care into daily routine, regular exercise, a good diet, mindfulness, exercise, and reducing stress and just maintaining good emotional stability. So those 8 things, I'm just going to read them again. These are some understanding the dynamics, strategies that people can use to help with co-parenting. Like I said, number 1 is just co-parenting within itself, embracing self-care, self-healing, effective co-parenting strategies, coordinating schedules, focusing on children's needs, being flexible, maintaining emotional well-being, and having self-care practices. So is this going to work for everybody? It's just something that people could use as a reference, of course, based off of who you are and your personality and stuff like that. You can incorporate whatever it is that you want to do. But these 8 things are things that people could actually do, to help with co-parenting, dealing with, that's the person that they're healing from, is the person they're co-parenting with.
You know what, Matt? I want to say this now. I know we coming towards the end of the show or podcast, but even if you guys who watch it when we air it on Wednesday, I want comments. And we all been children as well as parents. So we had to grow up. How many of y'all had to grow up where your parents was co-parenting? How do you feel? How did you take that situation? So I'm curious to hear how that is too, because I think that plays a dynamic too on how you raise your kids. If you so happen to be in that situation where you're co-parenting, like you was the product and you grew up where your parents weren't together. So I want to get input on that too. Any people out there that had to grow up in 2 separate households where the parents are separate, how did that affect you? How did it affect you as a parent and how you handled the situation? So I'm just curious on that as well. So
Diamond Girl has a response or a question. Some people still find themselves in codependency with their significant other after the breakup, not willing to let go, using the kids as pawns to control the other person. Can you speak on this? Oh, that's a good one. I'll let you tackle that one.
So she's saying, how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
When they codependent. I mean, to me, honestly, again, it's gonna sound easy, but you got to come with reality and face the fact. You may not see it, obviously, you might be in denial. If someone else brings it to your attention, it might come across as that person might just be jealous or negative, but you got to look at it, step out, and realize that that person is being codependent. You just got to let them know we can't do this. It ain't about us anymore. It's only about the kids. You're going to have to, work on yourself to understand that I can't keep doing this. And you can't depend on me in that way. But I think that person has allowed it, because I think if you are an enabler of a person, you're the one that got to do more of the reality check than the person that's being dependent. Because it's going to sound messed up saying this, but sometimes people going to do what you allow them to do. So if you keep allowing somebody to be codependent on you, they're going to keep doing it until you face the fact that, okay, I need to stop letting this person be codependent on me and realize that this part is over. I can't do this. So I think both parties has to, but at the end of the day, and it's not saying you're wrong more than the other person, but I'm a firm believer in don't be an enabler of people that's doing something wrong, because you, at the end of the day, you have to check and realize that they only doing what you allow that person to do. So.
Okay, so I'm going to be transparent. Now, my ex told me this. I don't know how true it is, but she said that she was seeking counseling, and her counselor told her to not see me or deal with me because I was her trigger. So I'm like, how do you tell the parent not to deal with the other parent because that person is the trigger until she healed? So not that she was using my children as pawns, but I'm just saying, like, that just popped in my head. But to answer your question, yeah, that's why I brought that up. If that person is actually seeking therapy, then I would think that counselor should be able to find out and determine, okay, you're being still codependent on this significant other. And if that person is being honest and like, yeah, I kind of use them, to control my ex or whatever the case is, hopefully they're finding ways to help her deal with her codependence. Now, if she's not, or he's not seeking therapy, then honestly, the other person, hopefully they're stable enough that they can identify that and they can navigate around it to the point to where they don't allow it to affect them and it affect the whole raising of the children, because it has to be somebody between the two has to have some logic and have some sensibility to where it's, okay, look, this is ridiculous. This is what needs to be done. The children is at risk. This is where the focus needs to be. So that's the best way I can answer that, is hopefully the other person can see that and they can navigate around it to where it's not affecting the children. Because how I see it now is that it's all about the children, And I had a talk with my friend. I see it as, like I said, being as business partners. The focus should be on the children. And if it's done that way, I truly believe it wouldn't be an issue. But when it's dealing with pain and healing, then that's what you're going to get. So I hope that answered your question. But beautiful people, we're going to have to wrap this up. We've been going for about an hour and a half. This is a great topic, in my opinion. So basically, I don't feel as though there's no perfect answer, because each individual is different. I just believe, like I gave the steps as far as the different dynamics to help navigate around that. That's the best approach, is to put the children first and heal. That's the number one thing, is that person has to identify they need healing, put the children first, and I believe everything else will smooth out. So with that being said, your thoughts becomes your belief, and your belief becomes your reality.
Yes, sir. Well, just same thing. Work on yourselves. It's a process, whatever we're going to go through. I'm a firm believer on that. Identify it, work on it, and know that it's going to be a process to get to that point where you can coexist. But I do believe you can coexist and raise your kids, but it got to be two. It takes two. One can't do it without the other. So just STS. I mean, hey, and what best segue to stay focused, trust that process, and stay consistent. But I appreciate you guys, Diamond Girl and KJ, for always being a regular on this show. To you guys that do watch, please feedback, guys. Let us know what y'all feel about this podcast, because we have good topics, and I think it's something that's good to know how everybody else thinks and how they move. So y'all enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we're looking forward to next week.
Oh, before I forget, beautiful people, if you haven't picked up your copy yet of Journey to Ascension, it's still available on Amazon. Okay. You can get the hardback, you can get the paperback, or whatever the case is. The best way I can explain it is like putting your toe in the water to test to see if it's hot or cold. That's basically what this book is. It's just a test, just letting you know, okay, this is a different approach that I can work on myself to become a better person and reach my higher self. And just a little admin note, I received the email. I actually signed us up for a podcast newsletter, and we're supposed to be featured in the newsletter via the Spotify, or they'll choose the YouTube. So just keep an eye out for that. Again, I thank those that continue to watch, and we love your support. Y'all have a beautiful day, and we see you next time. Peace.
Yeah.